Brandon Ramsey, it is time to Zoom action once again. We have a fantastic, what should be a fantastic episode coming to you all. Zoom action. I'm here, Zach Gagan, as I said, with Brandon Ramsey. We're going to be talking about one Milan Momcilovic today.
Woo!
Commitment for Kentucky. Yes, I think this is the one that we are definitely the most excited about. He's the one we're watching the film. You just kind of immediately, he pops off the page. You're like, oh my gosh, this guy backs up the ranking, the transfer portal rankings and all that. All the, the all Big 12 second team accolades, everything that has come with him over the offseason since his junior season ended, he has fully deserved and earned. And now he's going to be a Kentucky Wildcat. And he completely has, honestly, he has made the offseason, the perception of the offseason turn into like a complete 180 because of where Kentucky was on the outside looking in of the top 25 as of, Monday morning. Then as of Tuesday morning, when Momcilovic is on board, you're seeing him already into the top 20, 17, 16 range. Like, advanced analytics have him knocking on the door being a top 10 preseason team. So his impact alone, his shooting alone, his ability to just be a coin flip shooter has completely changed the perception of this Kentucky team. The Kentucky offseason a little bit has changed the perception of Mark Pope because he has finally been able to reel in that big fish. He landed the big commitment that he needed to. I don't care how much money it costs. It's not my money. It's not Brandon's money. It's none of Big Blue Nation's money unless you're just like a massive donor. And if the donor's watching us, shout out to you. I hope that you learned some stuff from us. And hopefully your money is well spent on Milan Momcilovic. I believe it will be. So, Brandon, we're going to separate today's episode into 3 different segments. We've got obviously a 3-point shooting segment. Then we're going to do some mid-range stuff, and then we'll do like a little 2-minute stretch that I noticed against a Kansas team from earlier in the season. So, before we kind of dive into the film, though, let's kind of talk about Milan for a second. 6'8", around 228 pounds. 3 years at Iowa State. He shot 48.7% from 3 last season on 7.5 attempts. Obviously, 48.7% led the country. I think it was one of the all-time great marks in college basketball history. Might have been number 1 if you set the minimum for number of attempts at a certain amount of three-pointers. Set the Iowa State record for single-season threes. If he had done this at Kentucky, I think it was 136 was his total threes last season. That would have been 19 more than Jody Meeks' single-season record at Kentucky of 119 back whenever that was, 07, 08 or something like that. So immediately comes in and is the best. He was the best shooter in college basketball last season. He's probably going to be the best shooter in college basketball next season. Even if he regresses down to 42%, 40%, he's still going to be unreal. He's still going to be a great catch and shoot specialist, can get his shot off from anywhere. That's something we'll talk about as well. His height allows him to do that. Not the most athletic player on the floor, not the strongest, but I think he's got good footwork. He's pretty quick for someone his size as well. And just changes how defenses have to guard you because of how insane his gravity is and the pull that he has when you have to have guys on him, eyes on him at all times. So, Brandon, I just want to get this was what, 2-3 weeks? Months in the making at this point before the whole NBA draft combine process with Milan. What was we've talked about before the importance of landing him. Now it has happened. Just what are your initial thoughts on Kentucky, on the impact that he's going to provide to this season's Kentucky team, or the next season, I should say, 26-27? Just what are your immediate reactions to Milan Momcilovic becoming a Kentucky Wildcat?
I think it's threefold for me. 3 very distinct ways and reasons why this is just huge. Like, it's hard to hyperbolize how big this is in a lot of ways. First and foremost, Milan Momcilovic is really freaking good at basketball. Like, he's going to come in and be one of the better returning players in the sport this year. So that's a really big deal. He averaged 16.9 points per game. He led a top 10 Iowa State team in scoring. An Iowa State team, mind you, that beat the crap out of us in St. Louis in the round of 32.
Did you rewatch that game?
I fast forwarded through it to get a few Momcilovic clips. But so just him alone, great basketball player. Second team all Big 12, 136 threes, 48.7%, leading scorer on a top 10 team. Anytime you can take the leading scorer from the team that beat you in the NCAA tournament, from a top 10 team, the best shooter in the country, that is a huge addition for your basketball program. So that alone, that's kind of layer number 1 of the cake, is he's awesome at basketball. Layer number 2 is, especially because of the way he plays and the gravity that he brings, as you mentioned, he makes all other 13 current Kentucky Wildcats better at basketball as well. We have 2 admittedly ball-dominant up in the air shooters. We'll see how Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins develop as 3-point shooters, but we have 2 drive first, ball dominant, but 30+% assist rate playmakers. These guys now have much more open driving lanes on the way to the basket than they would have had before. And also, if a defender does make a mistake and decide to step in and help a little bit and clog the stuff the gaps, well, now all of a sudden you're kicking it to the best shooter in college basketball. So I think Alex Wilkins and Zoom Diallo got better as playmakers, got better as drivers, even got better as scorers themselves because you have Milan Momcilovic standing out there on the wing or wherever he is running around at on that given possession. I think Malachi Moreno got better. Envision him as the hub of Kentucky's Zoom Action offense. Now all of a sudden there's going to be more open back cuts because of Momcilovic's gravity. You're able to hit a tight curl because people are going to be chasing him around. Obviously, and we're going to show some clips here on this show. I have a few on my Twitter account as well of him playing in Zoom Action at Iowa State and how he can just come off, and because he's 6'8", he just gets the handoff, and like even if they do a good job chasing, staying attached on his hip, he just shoots it because I'm 6'8", you're 6'4". I shoot it from way up here, and he sprays it in. So he makes it. Cam Williams is going to have a lot less pressure on him as a catch and shoot threat because now instead of being the number 1 option, he's going to be the number 2 option when he's in there. Like there's going to be less pressure on guys like Braden Hawthorne and Usman Njai who, maybe still need a little bit of time to ramp up and get ready to have a role. Like their role isn't going to be as important from day one. Like it'll be great if those guys are ready to go and can play a big role, but they're not going to necessarily have to now because you plug in this guy and you have Cam Williams, Justin McBride, other guys that can play on the wing. And then lastly, this is huge for us. Like this is huge for media. This is huge for fans. This is huge for everybody involved in the orbit of Kentucky men's basketball because and nobody more so than Mark Pope and his staff because it admittedly had not been going great. Like, the Tyron Stokes saga obviously played out about as poorly as it possibly could. And, even as we all kind of saw the writing on the wall, the last 24 hours of that was kind of a disaster and did not go well from a PR standpoint. You had the, Donnie Freeman and Rob Wright and all that kind of stuff. Like those things didn't go well. You don't land any high school recruits that aren't a walk-on brother of a player already on your team or the son of an assistant coach that you hired. Like, there were just a lot of things to kind of, poke fun at or question, especially coming off of back-to-back seasons that, ultimately don't live up to the standard of Kentucky basketball, especially this past season. So we all knew going into 2026, 2027, it was likely that Mark Pope was going to be, a little bit on the hot seat. And that still remains true, quite frankly, because ultimately all we care about is winning and losing the games. And then ultimately, even once again, what you do in the postseason in March. But this certainly gives us a few months now where we can be excited about the upcoming season. And, you and I have now done 8 or 9 of these film breakdown shows of the incoming players. And every time there are legitimate positives. Like we've been excited about the roster that's been built to this point. Like we thought it could be a little bit better than last season, but we always were like, yeah, it's good. Like, Zoom Diallo, a good player. I was looking good player, just like a good player, but it's probably just not quite what we need. Like, like two things can be true at the same time. They were good pieces. We got better than we were last year, but hey, guys, this is probably the 25th best team in the country and around a 32 team or something like that. So it's like, we're going to try to sell you on a little bit of excitement, but like, how excited can we be? There's no path to this being what it needs to be. Now there's at least that path. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Milan Momcilovic makes us the national championship favorite or that, I'm going to bet the house on Kentucky making a Final Four, but he sure as heck opens the door for some of those things to be true. So I think that between what he is as a player himself, what he means to every other player on this team, and then what he means to the coaching staff, to the fan base, to the media, to everybody involved, this is just a absolutely massive addition to Kentucky's roster. And sure, we had to wait until June 1st to get it, but with it ultimately happening, I could not be happier to wait that time because we got arguably the ultimate prize of the transfer portal in this cycle.
Yeah, Louisville wanted him. Arizona wanted him. St. John's wanted him before they landed Tunde Yesufu, another top-ranked transfer. top 2 or 3 transfer Milan was in pretty much every service out there. Some have him at number 1. Yeah, just like a guy that could have gone to the NBA and been an early second-round draft pick. Like, you're getting just a high caliber, and a guy that's played 100 college basketball games. I think that's another important thing as well. He's played a lot of college basketball. He's won a lot of games. Played in a good system at Iowa State. You know, Mark Pope had, we kind of went back and looked at some of the old quotes, like when Kentucky was playing in Iowa State in that NCAA tournament game ahead of time. Mark Pope was like, look, he likes to play up tempo and fast and shoot a lot of threes. And looking back now, it's almost like, well, that's what Mark Pope wants to do. And he just got the best guy available out there to kind of plug and play. So it does feel like he is more or less the ideal fit. Like Mark Pope, at least at Kentucky, I don't know. I can't speak for his BYU and Utah Valley State teams, but I can't imagine he had a guy as good of a shooter as Milan Momcilovic was. Like, Steven, actually, if you have that graphic I sent you of all of the synergy stats of like the catch and shoot and all of his 3-point numbers, if you have that real quick and can throw it up, we'll kind of touch on those.
Excited, Zach. We start talking these synergy numbers.
I mean, because they're absolutely absurd how he's able to be over 43, over 44% 3-point shooter in pretty much every statistical category, whether it's catch and shoot.
Zach, give me 1 second to have those. Give me 1 second.
You're good.
I'll have those up for you. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. So yes, I mean, he can just, and we'll show you some of the clips, like can just absolutely get a shot off from anywhere. Colin Chandler was the best 3-point shooter on Kentucky's team last season at 41%. And even at times it felt like he could be hesitant, maybe didn't always want to kind of chuck up some shots coming off screens and stuff like that. That is not a problem with Milan Momcilovic. He, like, as I started watching the film more, like I noticed that he can miss 3 in a row, but man, that fourth one's still going up the exact same as the first 3. And it's probably going to go in more often than not. And what's crazy is like there was multiple times when I was watching, like against Kentucky, I think he started 0 for 3 or 0 4 from 3. In this Kansas game I watched, he started 0 4 from 3. He still ended these games like 4 for 9 or 4 for 8 or something like that from 3. So like he goes through droughts and then all of a sudden he's just red hot and he changes the game completely. Like he's not a ball handler guy. He's a couple dribbles maybe. If he's dribbling the ball, it's so he can get into the lane and go for it, like this Dirk fadeaway that we'll show off. Like he's not going to be trying to get his own shot or stuff like that, but he can. Maybe the Kobe Bryant comparison is something we can talk about a little bit. Steven has this graphic here, or that's well, that one will work too. This one is also pretty. I was actually referencing the other one, Steven, but we will talk about this one for just a second here because, man, that is a lot of green in some of these shooting spots here. Like
70% from that right corner. 70%.
Yeah, that right corner is crazy. But he doesn't shoot as much from these corners. It's really these above the break threes on the wings here because he does a lot of like you were saying, Brandon, like curling around these screens. And this is like where he loves to catch and shoot up top here. This is where it's fun. Like the spot ups, 48.6%, transition, 43.9%, off screens, 45.5%, handoffs, 48.3%, catch and shoot, 48.5%, uncontested catch and shoots, 54.8%, off the dribble, 49.3%. Those are all stats by way of Brandon Ramsey's synergy account. Just absolutely absurd numbers for Milan Momcilovic. So let's just go ahead and stop talking. Let's bring up the film here, and let's go ahead and look at that. Let's go ahead and add this to the stage here. There we go. Thank you, Steven. And we will. So the first couple plays here we're going to talk about, I'm just going to let them play through, Brandon, and then I'll let your basketball brain talk and I'll let your coaching brain roll. But you're just going to see Milan Momcilovic get himself just being able to knock down tough threes. Step back 3 here on, I think that's Fletcher Lawyer maybe for Purdue there. Mm-hmm. There's an easy step back 3 there. Shoots over deep 3, a couple feet behind the line, coming off a screen here around. And again, lowers that shoulder, gets into the defender there. Just kind of a little nice step back 3 for him there. Again, coming around the screen, catch, shoot. Look how quick that, like when I saw that one happen, when I was watching, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, that is a quick release right there. Like just a literal catch and shoot coming off the screen there. And that's where he generates a lot of his threes, as you saw in that shot chart graphic that Steven showed. A lot of those threes come from this area here on the court, if you can see my cursor, where he's kind of in that above the break wings right there. So, Brandon, I'm going to let these plays just kind of run through, and you just talk to me about what kind of, like, obviously he can get his shots from anywhere, but just what are your initial thoughts and reactions to seeing some of these 3-pointers go in, and will we see the same thing at Kentucky?
You're definitely going to see the same thing at Kentucky, maybe even more so because of the way that Coach Pope can scheme some things up and when, what you're going to get out of that Zoom Action offense. But what I really like about a few of these clips, especially the first two where he makes some shots off of the dribble, is that I think, it would be understandable for some folks maybe haven't watched Milan Momcilovic or didn't watch a bunch of Iowa State last year, that you see his shooting numbers, you see this kind of big, goofy looking, lumbering 6'8" white guy, and you envision someone that's gonna, like, stand in the corner, stand on the wing, and catch and shoot. And he is so much more than that. Like, again, I go back to the fact he led Iowa State in scoring. This is an elite shooter, but also an elite scorer. Like, this guy can get buckets in a lot of ways. And sure, when you make 136 threes, there's not a whole lot of room for other shots and other scoring. We're going to show throughout this video where he can do a couple other things. Now, those other things that he can do are mostly opened up because of his shooting, admittedly. But, like, this guy, again, we showed the numbers from Synergy. He shoots a higher percentage off of the dribble from three than he does on catch and shoot threes. Like, this guy can create his own shot from three, and you see it there in that first one against Fletcher Lawyer. The other thing I really liked about that Purdue clip, as we get back to it here in 1 second, there's like 17 seconds on the shot clock here. So, like, this isn't a situation where, like, oh, shot clock's running down, I need to get a shot off. This is him creating offense for Iowa State. That's what he did at a really high level. Kind of same thing here. I mean, this is Houston, one of the best defenses in college basketball. Milos Uzan plays that perfectly. Like, he stays attached, he gets over the top of the zoom action, stays attached off the handoff, but then Milan Momcilovic is just 6'8", puts a little shoulder into him, creates enough space, and because Uzan is 6'3" and Momcilovic is 6'8", he just shoots it over him. And then here, this is kind of creating your shot without even dribbling. Like, he gets a little bit of separation off of the screen, and then he, like you mentioned, he releases it so quickly. But I think one of the things that really stood out on film, and what I want to really get through to the Kentucky fan base and anybody else watching Momcilovic heading into next season, like, he's not some statue from 3-point range. I mean, his footwork is elite. Some of the best footwork I've watched on a college shooter in a long time. Yeah, he's not traditionally athletic, but he's incredibly balanced. He's incredibly stacked on every shot. Like, something, I mean, I went through legitimately, Zach. I've watched all 136 made threes from last season. And one of the things that really stood out to me, aside from a few of kind of like the truly insane ones, like I think it's in this video.
We got one
later.
in here. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where he makes the corner fall away over Flory Badunga. But, like, probably 130 of his 136 threes, if you had the ability to, like, just, take away all background, take away everything, and just, like, isolate literally his shot, like, at the release point, I think you could, like, layer 130 of them over each other, and they would be darn near identical. And it's like, whether he's moving to his right, whether he's moving to his left, whether he's running ahead in transition, whether he's coming off of the dribble, whether it's a step back, like, when he gets to that release point, his body looks the exact same every single time. And I think that's how you become a coin flip 3-point shooter, is because whether you're contested, whether you're moving, whether you're off the dribble, whatever it may be, you're able to replicate and repeat that release time and time again. And that's what's so special about him as a shooter. And I think in these clips here, you get to see, yeah, it's him making threes, but it's him as a scorer, because it's not just like, oh, well, yeah, wait for Zoom Diallo to draw a little bit of help and you can kick it to him and he makes it. Like, no, he is the offense at times, where you give him the ball, he creates space, and this dude lets them fly, man. Like, tweeting out, shoot them all, Milan. I'm going to have that thing saved in drafts, because, like, he ain't going to give me time to type it out, because by the time I finish, he might be making another one already.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, like, the the identical shot release, like, it looks the same every time. Since I've been doing this, the only two guys I can confidently say that I think have done that at UK have been Antonio Reeves and Kobe Brea. Like, guys that just have the same exact shot every single time. Beautiful shots. I like Momcilovic's shot too. Like, he has that, like, a lot of the times you'll notice this right foot is really, like, it's way far out in front of him. And sometimes it's even more exaggerated than that shot. Like, that right foot will be like a whole 1.5 feet ahead of his left foot when he fires it off. It's just kind of, especially I think on this one here. Yeah, like, he kind of has, like, maybe a little bit of a funky set there on his shot, but it allows him to create maybe a little bit more space, and he's able to really knock him down. So I do have, like, some more little stats here before we kind of move on here. You talked about, he made that one shot with 17 seconds left on the shot clock or whatever it was. With CBB analytics, you can cut it down to time frame of shot clock. So when there was 0 to 10 seconds left on the shot clock, he was 54.5% on above the break threes. 50% on the corner threes. So when the shot clock was under 10%, he was shooting over 50% on his threes. And that was across 41 field goal attempts as well. So really, really high level stuff there. Kind of going back to the Kobe Bryant thing of like, how many times did Kobe Bryant just bail Kentucky out? Like, just dribble between the legs a couple of times, not even try and get past your defender, just shake him a little bit to keep him on edge, and then just rise up and shoot over top of him, and it goes right in. NBA threes for Milan Momcilovic, 49.1% on his NBA threes. So if he can stretch the defense out an extra 2-3 feet every time he's out there, that's really just going to open things up a lot for guys like Alex Wilkins, Zoom Diallo, Malachi Moreno especially. Just really helps space the floor out a little bit. So it's hard to understate how good of a three-point shooter he is. Like, I don't really know how to put it into like terms that actually can, other than just saying that he's the best three-point shooter in college basketball. Like, that almost seems like unfair to say to him because of the synergy numbers we just showed. Like, it was unreal what he was doing. And that's not a small sample size either. And even his sophomore season at Iowa State, he was still 39.6% or something on pretty decent volume as well. So the kid can just shoot the lights out of the ball. And he has a 3-year track record now of consistent development that shows that he, like I said, even if there's a 5 percentage point drop off next season, he's still going to be unbelievably tough to guard, even if he's not, number one in the country in 3-point shooting. But yeah, it is just incredible how much, or just how efficient he is shooting the ball. Like it's unprecedented at this point. So let's move on here. We're going to dive into these I think are going to be fun. The mid-range shots. So now we've got a bunch of these mid-range shooters on Kentucky's team, but I do think that that's not a bad thing at all. I think the mid-range shot is valuable, especially when you kind of need a guy that can just go get a shot. And Momcilovic was really good at it. I think I've got some stats here as well. 41.8% on his mid-range shots. That was like 70th percentile or something among all four or wings. So not a terribly high number, but a good enough number. And when you watch him shoot some of these shots, you're like, how does he ever miss it? Because I think we're about to get 4 of them in a row here. Just tough, like deep mid-range turnarounds as well. He loves the Dirk Nowitzki fadeaway turnaround. Really good at that. This is like the same shot we just showed that you had a couple times, Brandon, just 6 or 7 feet closer inside the arc where he's closer to the mid-range. Kind of comes off the curl there, puts his shoulder into a guy, and just rises up and gets himself a nice, easy look. Like, this is going to translate pretty easily to Mark Pope's offense, I think, shots like this. And then I think I got a couple another mid-range ones queued up here as well. And it is nice to just kind of have this in your back pocket where he's got to take a couple dribbles, bury your shoulder into a guy, rise up, easy money. Like, these are just awesome shots to see go in. And then here's a Kentucky one. Like, I did go back and watch the Kentucky game. And it was actually more frustrating to watch 3 months later just because of, like, Kentucky should have been leading at halftime and then blew the whole game open. And Milan actually started off poorly, but then he starts hitting shots like this where it's like, okay, what are you going to do with this guy? And I think he hits a 3-pointer not too long after that. So just some really tough shots. Like, the mid-range numbers are impressive. It's just another weapon, I think, for him to be able to, he didn't take a ton of them. I don't know if I have like his percentage of how many he took from the mid-range, but he knocked him down at a pretty decent clip. And it's another like potential bailout shot too, like if you need. And these are shots that you can get within the flow of the offense as well. Like, he's curling. If he doesn't have the 3, all you gotta do is, if you got a guy that's smaller on you, put your elbow or your shoulder into him, get yourself into the paint a little bit closer, and he's gonna knock that one down pretty consistently. So, Brandon, just what do you think of these clips and the mid-range shot? How's that going to work with 3 guys that are potentially kind of all, Milan is definitely more of a 3-point specialist, but he has that in his bag. Do you see this shot being something he can get at Kentucky? How will all of these mid-range shooters kind of work? If, I really want a big picture it, but just kind of what are your general thoughts on these type of shots right here from Milan?
I think there's going to be 2 ways that Milan Momcilovic shoots these mid-range shots. One of them will be like that mid-post isolation, the one that we just watched there, where you just kind of clear out a side. Like maybe you haven't gotten a bucket in a couple possessions. Maybe he's got a mismatch on a smaller defender, whatever it may be. Maybe just the spacing of the floor and the way you come down in transition. All of a sudden, he's on one side by himself, and you can kind of get him isolated, just like you see here against Jasper Johnson, and in this next clip against Arizona, I believe, where it just kind of works out. He gets a catch at 15 feet, and he can shoot that Dirk Nowitzki fadeaway. That's going to be one of the ways that he makes mid-range twos. The other way is going to be like this one, where because defenses are going to stay attached and chase over the top anytime there's in any sort of a handoff or any sort of a pin down screen, just envision that zoom action stuff into a corner for him. There's going to be curl opportunities for him every single time, whether that be as a cutter and just curling to the basket as they chase, or as he receives the handoff or receives a pass, he can then kind of curl off of the dribble around that pin down or around that handoff because that guy's going to be on his hip all of the time. So that gets him into that 15-foot range. As they start to fight back around, that's where he gets his shoulder into him, uses being 6'8", uses a little bit of his physical strength. He's really good at shooting that fall away as well, again, because his footwork is so good. Like he is fading away, but it's not kind of the traditional fade away that your elementary coach would yell at you for shooting. Like this is still a kind of stacked, on balanced, good release point fade away that he can make at a really high percentage. So I think those are going to be your two ways that you see it. That mid post ISO Dirk Nowitzki fade away, and then him kind of curling and ending up in that 12 to 15, 18-foot range, and as opposed to really attacking the basket that he's simply not as comfortable doing. He'll probably end up shooting that jump shot there, especially when he's going from his left. Mark Maggard's in the comments talking about that a little bit, how he's coming off a lot of times at Iowa State from the strong side. Him and I talked about this earlier today, and he thinks, I probably believe so too, he'll be coming off from the weak side a little bit more at Kentucky. And I think that could be the difference between some mid-range jump shots and some drives all the way to the rim. When he's coming off to his left, he's going to probably be more comfortable shooting that mid-range jump shot. If you can get sometimes this next season coming off to his right, where he's driving it with his right hand as opposed to dribbling it with his left, maybe that's where he can get all the way to the rim some. Just kind of a pretty nuanced thing to watch, and just sort of the way they space the floor at Iowa State. But the truth is, at least him as a shooter, he is so elite moving either direction that's probably not going to matter a ton, especially because of his footwork. But something to watch for in terms of the kind of shot diet between him getting to the rim maybe a little bit more versus him shooting these mid-range jump shots.
Yeah, we could talk about the mid-range, or not the mid-range shooting, but attacking the glass or attacking the rim. Like I have some numbers here. Like he's just, when he gets himself to the rim, he's efficient. He just doesn't do it all that often. Like I'm trying to look up here, 52.2% shots in the paint, or that was his field goal percentage on shots in the paint, 78.8% on layups, but he only took 33 layups all season long. He took one. He had one dunk all year long. Like, so he can get, he can get to the rim a little bit, but I think his footwork, like he's crafty. If he gets down low, he can pump up fake. He's really crafty with the footwork. We'll talk about a little bit more about the footwork maybe later on. But yes, only 8% of his field goal attempts last season were layups. So he can go in there a little bit, but that's just not really where he's going to try and get his bread and butter at. Like the mid-range. Let me ask you this, Brandon. Do you think, is he someone that Mark Pope is going to have to maybe draw up a bunch of stuff for, like maybe run a lot of sets and actions for, or how do you kind of see Mark Pope getting him involved to get him some of the shots that we've seen with the three-pointers or the mid-range? Kind of what's your take on that?
So I think the thing with Milan is, I mean, sure, you're going to scheme him into some space and into some spots to get certain catches, and you obviously want to, get opportunities for him to shoot clean catch and shoot threes, because we saw that percentage, it goes up even more astronomically into almost 55% when he's unguarded. And I think that playmakers like Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins are going to get him some of those inside out catch and shoot threes where it doesn't matter how much the opposing team harps on it in walkthrough and in the scouting report of, hey, don't help off at number 22. Don't help off at number 22. Well, people do a bad job sometimes. They can't help themselves in the game. They chase after the ball. He's going to shoot some wide open threes. But the other thing is, like, you don't have to get him wide open to make threes, as we've seen here, because we just watched some of these clips of him making step back threes over Fletcher Loyer, making step back threes over Milos Uzan. Like, we're talking about other high level teams and high level competition, really good defenders that being 6'8", having great footwork, having a little bit of physical strength to him in the upper body, he can create the space that he needs to make those threes. I mean, he made like 35, 40 threes off of the dribble He's really good at those like little one dribble side steps as somebody flies at him. Like, no, you think back to some of the best recent shooters, even like a Colin Chandler, quite honestly, Reed Shepherd in his one season at Kentucky, like those guys were excellent shooters, but quite frankly, they did sort of need to be open. Like we all wanted them to shoot more, but it was sometimes hard for them, Reed Shepherd, maybe because he was, not the biggest guy in the world. Colin Chandler, maybe just, wasn't quite at that level yet to be a guy that can come around and just kind of, spray him from anywhere. Like Momcilovic, you're never going to have to worry about like him getting the attempts. Like whether you scheme him open or whether he finds a way to create his own space, he's going to get the looks. I think the ways that I could see the scheme coming into play for Momcilovic this year would be opening up more opportunities for him to do some things off the dribble going to the basket, and then especially him as a cutter. I was a little bit surprised. I was a little bit surprised when I was looking at his synergy numbers how little he scored via cuts last season at Iowa State. I just kind of assumed, because a lot of times the best shooters are also really good cutters. Now, he is a great cutter, just his cuts result in 3-point shots, and I think that with the emphasis that Coach Pope puts sometimes on cuts going to the basket and how open I think the offense can be, especially if you lift Malachi Moreno and let him be that hub of the Zoom action stuff like we saw from Amari Williams 2 years ago. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities, again, because he's 6'8" and bigger. Like, let's get this guy going to a back cut and hit him so he can score it on the block or score it in the paint. And he was very effective doing that the few times that he did it last season. Like, quite literally, at least according to Synergy, he was 8 for 8 on back cuts. Like, he scored on all of them when he was going to the, when it happened last season. I just think that like we can 3 or 4x those numbers at Kentucky, in my opinion. Same thing with off the dribble, like I was talking about, with getting him coming off to his right more, or maybe he can attack that all the way downhill and lay it up, where because of his size, this guy's finishing 80% of his layups, because a lot of times when he's shooting layups, he's blowing by his guy. Like they're not contested at the rim because he's getting a closeout coming at him where they're just flying by him. Now he can just dribble it in there and lay it up. So I don't think that he's a guy that you have to scheme up his 3-point shots a ton. He's going to be in space. He's going to have opportunities to get those. I am going to be interested in how you scheme up some of the other shots for him that I do think, especially because, not that he didn't already have a target on his back, because, I mean, as a sophomore, he shot extremely well at Iowa State also, but he's going to have the biggest target on his back of like any shooter in college basketball history now, after making 136 threes at 48.7%. So people are going to do everything they can to take him away from the three. So how he does the other things this year, I think, will be how he can kind of incrementally maybe even get a little bit better. And quite frankly, you know what? There are a lot of differences, in my opinion, between him and Kobe Bryant. I think we have to be careful about making that distinction or that comparison, just because, like, okay, yeah, they're both elite shooters, but
6'7" shooters.
There's enough differences to their game. But one of the things I do think we could look for that would be a similarity, and this has nothing really to do with their game, but just their growth, is that one of the things that a lot of Kentucky fans were really surprised by when Kobe Bryant came to Kentucky was the number of things he got done off of the dribble. Like, he really became a lot better from 2-point range, as a passer, as a cutter, all these different things. Yeah. I'm anxious to see if Coach Pope and company can do something similar for Momcilovic, where he does score more from 2-point range. He scores more at the basket. Maybe he even assists a little bit more on some baskets. I think that's where maybe you could see a little bit of growth from him this season. Like, he's probably not going to grow as a 3-point shooter. Like, if he gets better
if he did, oh my God.
Yeah, he might actually shoot more threes this year. Like, it wouldn't shock me at all if he. In fact, I would actually probably bet he will shoot more threes. Like,
I've got a question about that.
So I think we're going to play in transition more than Iowa State. I think that he's just going to be in a position to have a larger role, quite frankly, because, like, we don't have Joshua Jefferson. We don't have Taman Lipsey. Like, I think he's going to shoot more threes. It's just, I don't necessarily expect him to make 48.7% of them again. But I do think that maybe he could take a step forward in some of those other realms, which would make him even that much more dangerous.
Yeah. A few things on that. With the Kobe thing, Kobe did, like, legitimately improve his playmaking and ball handling as the season went on. I do think part of that was just necessity. Once Lamont Butler was hurt, it was kind of like, okay, Kobe, you kind of have to be the point guard, so you kind of have to learn on the fly. Denzel had to do the same thing. Credit to him for doing that last season. I don't know if that will be hopefully that's not the case, and Milan doesn't have to worry about doing that too much. But you talked about the fact that he's going to have a target on his back next season as a guy that's best college basketball shooter. In turn, that should only open the floor up for everybody else, right? Like if everyone is even more hugged up on him, like that should make things a little bit easier for everybody else around him. That should also make it a lot easier for him to be a cutter. Like you were talking about, like I can see him doing zoom action stuff where he just turns it down entirely and just decides to cut towards the basket. Malachi Moreno hits him. And like Malachi Moreno loves that backdoor cut. Iowa State, when you were watching, they didn't have a center. Like, Joshua Jefferson they had Buchanan, who was like 6'11". He was springy, athletic. He wasn't really a center though. Like they didn't have any rim protect. That's a whole different discussion really. But Malachi can serve as like that real hub at the top where he's going to want to try and back cut teams to death. And I think it should be a little bit, not easier, but the availability of those cuts should be, like, he should have more than 8 backdoor cuts next season at Kentucky. Like you said, 4 times more than that, just because I think the opportunity will be there. Guys will be more hugged up on him. If he can, get himself close to that, one of his teammates is screening and just kind of have those guys attached to each other. That's an easy way to burn your defender and cut back door. So I do see that being, like I said, like the cutting was something I wrote down because I'm like, this kid can be a really good cutter. I think not because of the track record that he showed, but because of Mark Pope's offense. Like I think that's just something they're going to be trying to get him to do a lot more. And I think he'll do really well at it because the footwork, again, like that, he's just going to be able to get himself in spots where he has just a little, and Malachi can fit him like in tight spaces too. So that should really help. Yes, good cutter there. I had that. The 3-point attempts. So I don't know how many actually, let me look it up real quick. I know he shot 7.5 per game last season. His total attempts was 279. Jeff Drummond did a KSR plus roundtable thing where it was let's put the over under next season at 8.5 3-point attempts per game for Milan Momcilovic. I went over, and I think just slightly. So I did some research. Like, all right, so how many guys did that last season? And the only website I could find was a website called Team Rankings. You're probably somewhat familiar with them, Brandon, or at least have been on it before. But they had like 18 to 20 guys that had shot 8.5 or more last season. And some of the guys were like Lamar Wilkerson, Ryan Conwell, Jackson Shellstad. There was another big-time shooter on there as well that the name is escaping me right now. But those guys were all able to do that, and they were primarily shooters as well. So if Mark Pope wants to get to that 33-pointers per game mark last season, like I think he was at 25 year 1, 23 year 2. If he wants to get to 30, I think Milan's going to have to take probably 30% of those 33-pointers. So getting there probably gets him close to that 8.5. I don't know if he can do 10.3-pointers a game. That's a lot, but 8.5. Would you pick the over on that? Like, I think a lot of it will come down to minutes as well. Like, if he's playing 30, he played 30.5 minutes per game last season. If he can get that again this season in Kentucky, I think he will get there. He can get to that 8.5 number just because I think Mark Pope's just going to funnel so many shots to him. But then you also have, like, there's a lot of factors at play. Sorry, Brandon, my brain's bouncing back and forth here. But Alex Wilkins and Zoom Diallo want to shoot as well. Like, how are they going to be able to balance the shot, whatever word I'm looking for, the shot consistency throughout the starting? Like, is he going to be able to get there, counting all the other factors in there with the guy, like the point guards they're going to want to shoot as well? Can Milan get to 8.5 3-point attempts per game, do you think? Or does that even matter? Like, is there a number you're looking for with the amount of attempts you want him firing off if he's shooting 45% from 3 next season?
Well, shoot them all, Milan will be something that I'm saying. And I always say it, like, when I tweet that, it's not a joke. Like, I choose the people that I say it for. And I choose it because I mean it, and nobody's ever deserved it more than Milan Momcilovic. Like, if you're going to shoot that high of a percentage, then you should literally shoot all of them you humanly possibly can. And so, I mean, no, like, am I going to sit here and act like it's a math problem that we have to get him to a certain number of attempts? No, but the number of attempts that he should shoot are as many as possible. And it would not shock me at all if that number crept to the 8.5 to 9 a game, because I just looked at Tucker DeVries's numbers at Indiana last season, because he's a guy that spends all of his time on the perimeter. That they're kind of built somewhat similarly. Milan's a much better player than Tucker DeVries, but Tucker shot like 7.7 threes per game last season. That's with playing next to Lamar Wilkerson, who was also shooting just as many. Like, nobody else is going to shoot nearly that many threes on this Kentucky team. Like,
No.
depending on what their roles end up being, like I would assume that Alex Wilkins and Cam Williams are your next two highest attempt 3 points per game guys. But I wouldn't expect either one of those guys to, Wilkins, because the ball's in his hands a lot. Like, could he shoot 5 a game? Maybe. Like, could Cam Williams shoot 4 to 5 a game? Maybe. But, even if you add all those up, like that's still, you still have a long way to go to get to the even 25 or 30. So yeah, I think it's entirely possible, and probably it should be true that he shoots 8.5, 9, something like that, threes per game. And, the math starts to get pretty fun if you're shooting 40% or more, as you get, closer to 10 threes. That's quite a few points.
Yeah, and I think one of the games I was watching, they showed some stats, and this was like through 25 games or something in the season, and it said that Iowa State as a team was like maybe like a 40% three-point shooting team, but Milan was, at the time, he was 52%, and everyone else was 34%. So him by himself lifted up the entire team into being an elite, or at least on paper, looked like an elite three-point shooting team.
That's what I said about him the other day. And this would have been true if he signed at Louisville. This would have been true if he signed at St. John's. Really, anybody. I mean, he genuinely is. He is such a good individual shooter that he immediately makes whatever team he's on. Kentucky, obviously being the team now, like he immediately makes you one of the best shooting teams in college basketball. And I think that obviously just how true that is then depends on, okay, yeah, can Alex Wilkins replicate making 65 threes at Furman? Can he bring that to Kentucky? Can Cam Williams be a guy that gets back to his Tulane numbers? Can he make 60 to 70 threes this season? Does Justin McBride and Jerome Morton, like, are those guys still 40% three-point shooters this season on whatever volume they get? Can Zoom Diallo make another step as a three-point shooter? Like, even if a couple of those things that I just rattled off end up being true, then with what you assume you can pencil in Milan from beyond the arc, then yeah, I think you're talking about a Kentucky team that's going to make close to 10 threes a game, and they're going to do it at, 36 to 38, 39%.
That would be over 33 pointers a game as well, if you're getting to that point as well.
Right.
And I remember going into last season's season, a lot of it was like, okay, all these guys, they can be shooters, but like a lot of it was projecting like that guys would just improve their numbers. Like guys would go from 33, 34% to 37, 38. Now you've got a bunch of guys that were already there. Like you said, Morton and McBride. McBride was 40%. Morton was like 38%. Obviously, Momcilovic was really high. So really you only need, and Cam Williams has, he had the good track record at Tulane, and then I think he finished at like 36% last season at Kentucky. So you have guys that are already proven shooters there, and then you only, instead of having to have 6 guys improve their three-point percentage, you really don't even need, I mean, Zoom Diallo can improve, but like if Zoom Diallo goes to 33% on one make a game, like that's kind of your thing, Brandon, like that's perfectly fine. I think Alex Wilkins is really the only guy you actually want to see, because I think he'll probably be playing a little bit more off ball compared to Zoom. So if Alex Wilkins can get into that 36, 37% range, then you're like, okay, Kentucky might have one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country.
Which Alex Wilkins was that percentage from as a catch and shoot threat last year. Like he was 37-38% on catch and shoot threes. So we obviously talked about that a lot on his Zoom Action episode. But that's one of the reasons why I am optimistic about his 3-point shooting, is that he's going to take presumably better threes than he took a lot last year, where he was just the guy with the ball in his hands literally all the time, every possession for Furman. I think that, as you see his shot diet go towards those higher percentage threes, it's fair to assume that his overall percentage can look more like that catch and shoot percentage did last season.
And I have no idea what Injai is going to shoot next season. I don't think anybody knows. Like that guy still is just like an enigma to me. I have no idea.
You could tell me anything. Like, that's what I keep saying with him. I mean, to me, with probably, quite honestly, Braden Hawthorne probably being second, but Usman Injai, like the spectrum of outcomes for Usman Injai this season, to me, is like,
the ceiling is up here and the floor is on the ground.
Yeah, like it wouldn't shock me if he has genuinely zero impact on this team, like barely even plays in a game, is completely meaningless to the outcome of the season. And it wouldn't shock me if he makes like 45 threes and is like a pretty darn good player, like ends up starting at the 4, all these different things. Like that's possible too. And then, the myriad of options in between. But yeah, like you are not going to get me at any point before the season, at least until there's like more intel coming out of practice or something. Like you're not going to hear me register an opinion on what he's going to mean to this team because whatever I said, like it could be so incredibly wrong. It's not even funny.
I think we said that like a dozen times during our Zoom action on him, where we were like,
we just kept saying it. Yeah,
it's like I like to reemphasize, like we can show you all these clips and we can talk about it all we want, but
but what does
still
it mean?
Liga, La Liga or whatever, Liga AC or the Serie A, whatever it was. So, okay. Final thing here, I'm going to show some of the clips that I have from this Kansas game. Let me see if I can scroll them all the way back here. So this was. So if you you can't see the score right now, but Iowa State's up 8 early in the second half here against Kansas. They're at home. This is a number 5 versus number 9 matchup, middle of Big 12 play. The reason I'm going to show this little stretch here is just to showcase how quickly Milan Momcilovic himself can change the game and change how teams defend entirely within a matter of 2 minutes. So I'm just going to let these play here. So like I said, up 8 points Iowa State is. You get, again, one of these like just simple, easy curl around the – we'll go back to him scoring over Jasper Johnson real quick so I can replay it. Just easy stuff here, like easy offense. Just come around the screen, catch, shoot, buckets from the top of the key right there. Now they're up 11 points. Let's see. We got less than – this is 30 seconds later now. Again, hanging out on the corner here. Just kind of like, bad defense from Kansas here, honestly, like leaving Momcilovic wide open. But he gets it, does a great shot fake here on Flory Badunga to get himself a little bit of space. Like we saw, if you want to make the Kobe Brea comparison, like that's where you see it, stuff like that, is Kobe was really, really good at that sidestep 3. Another massive momentum shifter here. And then Milan doesn't even make this shot. This isn't even his shot attempt. But look what guys have to do. You got Darren Peterson and Flory Badunga wrapped up on him because he just drilled 2 threes. This is at 18 minutes now left in the second half. So in the last 90 seconds, he has hit 2 big threes, and they are scared poopless of him right now. All you have to do is easy dump-off pass for a wide open. Your point guard's hitting that shot. So you can see Alex Wilkins or Zoom Diallo getting the benefit of that shot right there. And then, Brandon, the one shot I didn't have, the one that I wanted to really show. So let me kind of load that one up real quick while I'm chit-chatting here. The one that the
one that I alluded to where, he's like falling into the fans, going to his left. That one. Yeah.
Let's see.
Shooting it over Flory. It's insane.
Yeah. Like it's one of those where you're like, okay, if he's making these shots, like then what, how exactly are you able to defend this guy? So let's see if I can do this.
As you work on that, Zach, I'll riff here for a second if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Talking about that sort of that shot in it. So it's funny. I'm finishing up my KSR film room write-up of Milan Momcilovic essentially as we speak. First of all, I've never had so many clips in an article. I'm going to end up writing like 4,000 words about this guy because it's just
like a lot that we didn't use for this.
But I like one of my categories is literally just like insane threes. Like I have 3, like, threes coming off of Zoom action, threes in transition, making people pay for going up through, all these different things, like, that are very, that they translate to Kentucky. Like they're kind of like real life examples of how he's going to be so good here. And then I'm like, there's so many of these threes that are just fun. Like I just want the human race to see him make some of these shots because they're so freaking amazing. So I just had like 3 or 4 clips of like, these are insane, please watch. And this is one of them.
This is the one where you're like, this is shot clock going down, Flory Badunga on him. Like, come on. That's an impossible shot. Even he knows it. Like, he's like, okay, I don't know how I just made it. Like, but these are the shots. Yeah, like that is excellent defense. Flory Badunga is like, what is he?
The Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year.
One of the most athletic guys in college basketball for someone his size, and he gets a great contest in this too. And he's right there with him the whole time. And Milan's able to. I mean, that's an impossible shot. Like, I don't know how he made that one. It's one of ththose like gimmick shots, but hey, it went in, and I bet you he makes at least 1 or 2 of these at Kentucky, and he's going to bail Kentucky out in a big spot there. And this was soon after. So like, we were talking about the 3 clips I just showed were the first 2 minutes of the second half. This is only 2 minutes later. It's a 17-point game right here. Like this literally ends the game. This shot is what ended the game. Like Kansas got it back to I think 8 points with like 3 minutes left, but that was it after that. Like they couldn't get any closer because Milan just caught fire for 4 minutes. And all of a sudden, a game that was an 8-point game turns into a 20-point game, and now Kansas lose, and there's not enough time left. As Bill Self likes to say, we didn't lose, we just ran out of time. And boy, they ran out of time with this one right here. So,
and what's so fun about that shot, Zach? And I have to say this now, like,
please,
we obviously don't know exactly how this season's going to go. Like we now have the ability to be excited about the season. Like there's reason for optimism. I do genuinely think this is like a top 15 team now that can, punch up potentially even further. But what I do like, good Lord help us barring injury. What I do know is there's going to be 2, 3, 4 games this season where Milan Momcilovic has a run like this, where he makes 4 threes in the span of 2 or 3 minutes. He's going to cap it off with one of the, what in the blank was that way that like this shot was, and it's going to happen at Rupp Arena. And can you imagine how fun like those moments are going to be? Like, please let one of them happen against Louisville or Tennessee or something like that. But regardless, like what I do know is like I'm going to get to experience that at Rupp Arena at some point this year. And maybe the rest of the season isn't going to be what we want. Maybe it will. But I know I'm going to get to watch Milan Momcilovic make 4 threes in the span of 120 seconds at some point. And one of them is going to be, falling into the cheerleaders' laps on the baseline. And it's going to just, set that place ablaze. And it's going to be super fun. It's either going to come like during a huge comeback or we're going to put a team away early like they did to Kansas there. And that is something that we can sit here on June 3rd and be like, boy, that's going to be something fun to look forward to.
He's a game breaker, and Kobe Bryant could kind of be that guy in first season. Kentucky didn't have a game breaker like that last season. Like, they could go on runs and Colin Chandler could get hot for a couple minutes, but like it's a little bit different when you see Milan get into these rhythms right here. So let's kind of start winding things down here a little bit. I know there's a couple of things I want to talk about. The defense and the rebounding with Milan is going to be something that people will try and poo-poo on a little bit. So we'll just talk about it for a second. The offensive rebounding numbers are hilarious. He ranked in the, I don't even know how to say it, Brandon. He ranked in the zeroed percentile in offensive rebounds last season. He does not even try and go for them. But I think there's a good reason for that. Like he literally averaged 0.2 offensive rebounds per game last season. 0.2 offensive rebounds per game. And he only averaged 3 rebounds total last season. Yeah. But the offensive rebounds, I don't care about that number. You know why? Because the reason he doesn't attack the glass is because he's hanging on the perimeter waiting for somebody else to get a second chance opportunity so he can sit out there and bang home a second chance 3. And that's what I want him to do in Kentucky. I think that's exactly what he will do. So I do not care about the offensive rebounding numbers. The defensive rebounding numbers may be a little bit different. And this will kind of transition us into our what position is he going to play type conversation we'll talk about next. Is it going to be the 3 or the 4? But the defensive rebounding numbers are bad as well. Like I said, I think he's not the most athletic. He's not the strongest. He has really good footwork. He's a smart basketball player. I actually think he's a really good team defender. Like there was, when I was watching the Kansas game, there was 5 different instances where he was like the guy that was rotating over and he either, stopped guys from passing it into the paint or cut off somebody. Like there was a clip going around of him walling up Flory Badunga at the rim where he just keeps his hands up. He does not foul. I'll give him that. He does not foul at all. He's really good there. So he uses his footwork to try and help him a little bit, make up for the lack of athleticism and strength. But yes, only 3 rebounds per game. And he's averaged 3-point-something rebounds per game all 3 seasons at Iowa State. So I don't see that number really ticking up at all. Rebounding was not exactly, Kentucky's strong suit last season. So that's going to be something maybe to watch for a little bit. I just think there's just maybe a little bit of a lack of athleticism at 6'8" that prevents him from really being a super high level ultra rebounder at his size. So I'm not terribly concerned about that either. I would like to see him average 5 defensive rebounds a game next season like that. I feel like that's not asking for a lot, but we'll see if that can happen. And then the defense, just kind of in general, multiple times I saw him get burned by quicker guards. I don't think that's abnormal for someone his size. If the footwork can only help him so much. The footwork, it did help him against Andre Jelovic and Mo Diabate. He was stonewalling them when I was watching that game. And, that's not there's more Andre Jelovic's and Mo Diabate's in college basketball than there are guys that are super elite and are going to try and beat him off the dribble. So I don't think he's a good defender. I don't think he's a bad defender. I think he's right in the middle. I do think he's a bad rebounder. I don't know how much that really all matters because he's out there to just shoot 10 3-pointers a game, as kind of we've talked about for the last 54 minutes. But Brandon, I'm going to kind of let you talk about anything from the rebounding and defense that you want to talk about, and then maybe transition to that. And, does that play a factor? Like, if he's playing the 4 and only averaging 3 rebounds a game, that seems pretty bad. Like Kentucky's not going to be a good rebounding team at all if that's the case. If he's at the 3, you can swallow it a little bit easier, and it's easier to understand. So just let's kind of take the defensive rebounding thoughts and then transition that into what position you think maybe better suits him for the Mark Pope offense.
Yeah, you know what my first answer is going to be. That I've
you don't care about defense.
Yep. I've held true to throughout these shows, and it got people riled up. Imagine that on Twitter this morning when I even admittedly said somewhat jokingly that I've said that, and Twitter's not a place for jokes, Zach. People were mad that I said that that defense didn't matter. People were very mad at me for that. They reminded me why I'm no longer coaching. Yeah. That was a big point of like, I can't believe a coach said this. It's like, I'm not a coach, but thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so yeah, I mean, admittedly, I do somewhat joke when I say that there is some truth to it. Like, I want us to be elite offensively, and then the way I've started to say it, and Coach Dan Hurley kind of alluded to this in an interview, that like, I want to build our offense, meaning I want to go out and get elite offensive players and build a team of great offensive talent. And then I want to coach the defense. Like, I can coach you to get better at defense. I can coach you to get in the right position. I can show you film of how to, rotate. I can, hopefully get you to communicate better with your teammates. I mean, so much of defense is communication and wanting to guard. Like,
yes,
that is like 90% of it. And then obviously there's physical tools that come into play. Kentucky is going to be pretty long as a team. They're going to have decent positional size on the wing. So like there's going to be some ability to like maybe, get some deflections, be handsy defensively, get some steals, get some blocks, create some havoc. Are they going to sit down like Iowa State, like Houston, like some of these teams and be elite defensively? No, that's not going to happen. But in terms of Momcilovic individually, yeah, the rebounding numbers, like you're going to trade that off for making 136 threes. Like, if he averages 3 rebounds a game and makes 136 threes, I'm going to shake his hand and say, you did a great job, buddy. Like, I'm not going to care. And quite frankly, that's probably just going to be the case. Like, he's not vertically athletic. He doesn't move very well laterally. He does have an IQ, like, and especially coming from Iowa State, being coached by Coach Otzelberger for 3 years, like, yeah, was he the reason Iowa State was excellent defensively? No, that was Joshua Jefferson and Taman Lipsey and those guys. But he was still in practice every day, getting yelled at about guarding, and like, he was a part of the team that was elite defensively. So like, I do think you're going to see him, be in the right spots at different times and be a decent communicator and all those things. Like you said, he'll be an all right team defender. Yeah, he might get whipped off the dribble a couple times in an individual matchup. He might be slow on a closeout from time to time, but he's generally going to be in the right spots.
Well, if I can just interject for just a second on that too, like, Iowa State, like I mentioned earlier, did not have a rim protector. They didn't have a true center. Malachi Moreno is now the guy that's waiting down there for him. Like, Iowa State's defense was good because all of their guys were just like, they got up on you, they pressured you, they tried to rip the ball out of you immediately. That's probably not going to be Kentucky's game. Maybe they can do a little bit of that, but when Milan Momcilovic is getting burned, he's got Malachi Moreno waiting in the back, at the rim for him. So I think if Malachi can take a little bit of a leap as a rim protector there, that's going to help. Malachi is also going to be the one inhaling all the rebounds. Like, he has a really impressive rebounding rate. So I think that he's just going to naturally steal rebounds away anyways from someone like Milan. Right. So it's going to be a different defensive system in general, because Iowa State did not have a Malachi Moreno. It worked for them because they had really, really good pressure. Kentucky's going to have the benefit of having a guy who's 7 foot and can block a lot of shots down low. So just wanted to add that in there as well.
Yeah, and then getting to sort of our question and what you and I think are going to have a chance to maybe debate a little bit about. Our producer Stephen Peak said that one of us should get really bad and storm off just for views, but I don't think we're going to do that. But I am in the camp of Milan Momcilovic playing the 4 for a couple reasons. One, as I've alluded to, like, I want this team to be elite offensively, and I think that the best offensive lineup is going to be Zoom Diallo, Alex Wilkins, Cam Williams, Milan Momcilovic, and Malachi Moreno. I love that lineup from an offensive standpoint, and also, quite frankly, getting Cam Williams in there is probably part of your best defensive lineup, because I think that like probably the only 3 players going into next season that I would label as good defenders are Malachi Moreno and Big Frank. And obviously both of those guys are 5 men who are, quite possibly literally never going to play at the same time. So only one of those guys. The good news is always the good news.
I hope not.
Yeah, the good news, there will always be one of them on the court. The bad news is there's only ever going to be one of them on the court. And then the other one would be Cam Williams. I think he is a legitimately good defender that will help Kentucky on that end of the floor. But I think that Milan is going to have a lot better chance of guarding 4s than he will guarding athletic 3s. And especially, we see teams across college basketball now, they're playing bigger 4s, but they're playing like 3 guards. So like the idea of Milan playing the 3 and kind of having to guard a guard versus him maybe being able to guard a 4-man that is almost assuredly less skilled than him. They might still be more athletic than him, but it's not going to be a guy that like you're chasing off of screens on the perimeter and things like that. I think that he'll just have a lot better chance of guarding the 4s. And then yeah, like you're going to have issues rebounding the ball, but with this personnel, like I think that's going to be the case anyway. Like even on our spectrum of Usman Njai, like even if he is playing a ton, I think he's going to be a okay rebounder because he's athletic and long, but like I don't think he's going to be a great rebounder. Justin McBride I think can be an okay rebounder, but it's not like he's not Mo Diabate or somebody as a rebounding 4-man. So like you're just not going to get a ton of rebounding from the 4 spot this year, regardless of who you put there. You're gonna need Cam Williams to be a really good rebounder from the wing. You're gonna need Zoom Diallo to use some of his physical gifts and get in there and help on the glass. And you're gonna need Malachi Moreno to be an excellent rebounder. He should be thinking about averaging a double-double this year. Like that should be a goal of Malachi Moreno's.
Oh yeah,
is to average a double-double. And then when Big Frank is in there. I keep saying Big Frank because I haven't even attempted yet to learn how to say his last name. I genuinely have no idea.
I think that's more or less his nickname anyways.
Yeah, so I'm just going to call him Big Frank until I learn otherwise. But he's going to be a good rebounder when he's in there because he has some pretty impressive physical gifts and he's one of the elite shot blockers in college basketball as well. But yeah, I think that best lineup is with Milan at the 4. Then you can put Justin McBride in there. You can slide Milan obviously down some. I'm not saying that Milan's never going to play the 3, but I do like the idea of starting him there and having McBride then as your 6th man to plug and play between the 3 and the 4.
Yeah, I think for me, like I just vision him at the 3 because that's more or less what he played at Iowa State.
Right.
The rebounding scares me if he's at the 4. A lot of it is like, I'm not really thinking it in the setting of going up against the other 15 SEC teams. I'm really thinking it of like, okay, what happens when Florida's the other team and Milan's at the 4 and you've got all of those big guys down there? Like that part scares me. So that's part of why. But then again, like you were saying, and you kind of did influence me a little bit there saying, like McBride, Williams, not going to be high-level rebounders anyways, unless Njai. I do think Njai can be because he's 6'10", 6'11", really athletic. I think he can be a high-level rebounder. That's why I kind of can see him maybe as the season goes along being, getting more minutes at the 4 than maybe a McBride if all the things go right with him. And obviously he hits like we have no idea, like we've been talking with him. So the rebounding scares me a little bit. And then the defense of having to match up against guys like Florida scares me a little bit. But maybe it is just like it's going to happen anyways type thing. So maybe just try and do it so it the offense offsets that a little bit more. Because I do think that Milan and Cam Williams playing at the same time is going to happen a decent amount. I guess it maybe doesn't like I kind of envision Cam being at the 4 maybe more often than Milan and maybe having him at the 3. But that might totally just be situational too. Like depends on who's on the other side of the floor. Like if the other team they're guarding doesn't have a fast, quick 3 or something like that, or like a wing that can maybe beat Milan off the dribble, then he's perfect for the 3 because then he can sit back and guard a little bit easier. So a lot of that might be situational, but I mean, ultimately, I don't think that's this is just more of like a fun question for the offseason. Like Mark Pope's going to put him where he puts him. And like, I think someone said that, maybe has him as a stretch 4 at the NBA. Like he's just too small, I think, to really be like a true stretch 4 and play consistently at that, even at the college level in the SEC. But, we'll see. So it ultimately might not matter just because you just want to boost up the offense as much as possible. And if that comes with him at the 4 and you have to sacrifice some points a little bit, then so be it. So, but I do think that having Malachi being the guy kind of waiting at the rim will help a little bit. And maybe if Milan is the 4, you can see that working a little bit better, pairing him with a guy like Malachi, who is a pretty good defender. So,
well, the last point I would make on that too, and not to continue to bring up Usman Njai, but I think that some of it really
he's important.
It really will have to do with his development. Like if Usman Njai is not ready to play in the games, then you're probably going to have to play Milan at the 4 a decent amount, because then your 4s become Milan and Justin McBride. If Usman Njai is able to play in the games, then you can lean on him to play the 4 some more with Justin McBride, and you can slide Milan Momcilovic down. And honestly, the same thing could work a little bit with Braden Hawthorne. Like if Braden Hawthorne is really good and you have to get him some minutes, well, that's going to come more so at the 3. Most likely it's because he's a longer, athletic, not as physically put together guy. So that would maybe slide Milan up a position more. So I think that a couple of Kentucky's X factors off of the bench could impact his minutes positionally, just in terms of like which one of those guys are you really trying to get minutes for, as opposed to honestly kind of trying to find ways to not have to give them minutes. And that's kind of where then you would slide Milan around to kind of fill those gaps.
Yeah, I want Hawthorne, like, you want to have a log jam there. Like Coach Pope wants to have a problem where he's like, okay, I need to get Braden Hawthorne on the floor. Like, how do I do that? But Braden Hawthorne didn't play basketball at all last season. So I'm hesitant to like kind of throw him in there as like an immediate contributor, because he just wasn't, he obviously wasn't good enough last season to play. Like if he was good enough, I think Mark Pope would have played him. There's plenty of injuries to like justify it. So I think he can be really good, but I just hesitate to kind of like throw him into all these rotations and automatically give him 15 minutes a game, because I just have no idea. Like Njai, you can see a little bit more because he's got a tracker. Like he's been playing basketball, like he's been playing real games and everything. So you can at least talk about that a little bit easier. But Brandon, anything else here that you want to kind of chit chat about with Milan? Anything that we didn't talk about? I'm trying to see if there's anything in my notes that I didn't really touch on with him, but
I don't think so. I do want to encourage everybody to like, comment, and subscribe. We missed that off the top. We were so excited to talk about Milan Momcilovic, but we do have well over 500 people in here watching live. So shout out to everybody who's been in the comments. Shout out to everybody watching. Please make sure you are already subscribed to the Kentucky Sports Radio YouTube channel, and please leave this video a like. It really makes our friend Stephen Peak's day. Yeah, absolutely. So please do that while you can. I think that'll probably do it for us, unless, I might sit for a second. I didn't see if there was any comments that, if people were asking questions or anything, but I know we're definitely going to try and do a big Frank Zoom action sometime soon. That might be next week or sometime, but we have some big plans for more Zoom action stuff. Big plans throughout the summer. So we should be doing more stuff more often, but I think that's going to do it for us here. So yeah, awesome episode. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I am so glad we got to do this episode. Milan Momcilovic is a Kentucky Wildcat. We got to do this episode. That's good stuff.
We talked. There's been other Zoom episodes or Zoom actions where we've been like, there's not really any more guys left. They missed on Tyron Stokes. Like, unless they can pull a rabbit out of their hat and go get Milan Momcilovic. Like, this is kind of the roster. And then 2 months later here, or a month later here, Kentucky is with Milan Momcilovic and like pretty firmly as a top 20 team in the country preseason polls. So we'll see. Now I think summer workouts. I think Jacob Polachek had a report that Milan's coming to campus on Saturday. I think some guys are already here. Like Malachi obviously lives in the area, so he's been here. Like I think Jack maybe said June 15th or something like that, or like the second week. Yeah, June 15th is a Monday. So I think that's the first day of like them actually being able to do NCAA regulated practices and things like that, workouts. They might not be called practices, might be called workouts at that point. So it is kind of picking up, and that's when it'll be really fun to actually get like some tidbits of actually, what's kind of going on in practice, and is Njai going to be, a starting caliber player off the rip there. So but yes, this has been fun. It's awesome that we finally got to talk about Milan. We've been waiting to do this one. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. One more time, like, comment, subscribe. But otherwise, Brandon, I think we'll go ahead and head out, and we'll see you all next time. Go Cats.
Go Cats.